In this video we're going to change the belt tensioner and a couple of the pulleys in this Captiva. Alright, the main issue that we have is that when the engine's started up, and it usually does this just when the vehicle's first started up in the morning and then just idling, you'll hear the belt tensioner making like a rattling noise. What that most likely is the tensioner spring inside that tensioner. So we're going to replace that. While we're in there, we're also going to replace the couple of the pulleys as well. Alright, so if you take a look at this diagram here, this is for the 2.2 litre diesel Captiva. That's the tensioner here. So that's what we want to replace, but while we're in there, we're also going to replace these two pulleys as well. I've put the part numbers all in the description. They're going to vary depending on what aftermarket supplier. I've also got the genuine part numbers on that list too. So let's just take a look at the tensioner first of all. So that's a replacement tensioner. This particular one is a Dayco brand. So it comes with the central bolt. You can purchase this pulley as a separate piece if you require only to change the pulley, but the issue is it's the main spring inside the tensioner. Then of course the main drive belt as well. Since we're in there and taking it off, we may as well change it. And also these two pulleys here, you have an upper and a lower one. They're the replacement pulleys. Alright, so one of the first things we need to do is just take off the engine cover here and also undo the airbox and take all of that out just so we can get a better view of what's happening. Alright, so once you've removed the 4 screws, you need to unplug this sensor. Just be very careful of that, they're very fragile. And we need to undo this clamp here. Okay, so now we can take out the air filter. And we want to remove this whole box as well. So there's a couple of bolts here. There's one over there. I think it's just those 3, so I'll undo all of those. The bolt in this part here, it's a 12 mil. You have to just use a spanner and try and get it in there. It's very tight. now with that airbox removed out of the way, we need to remove this engine mounting bracket. In order to do that, you need to support the main engine itself. So there is a eyelet up here to connect an engine crane to. The other alternative is to use a jack underneath, but because I've got an engine crane, I'm going to make use of this eyelet. You could, of course, just use a jack underneath. Alright, so underneath, just as a safety precaution, I've got some hardwood timber just stacked underneath below the actual engine, just in case something goes wrong and it drops. Of course, if you were using a jack to jack up the engine from underneath, you do it in a similar way, but make sure you use a position which is safe and not just directly in the center of the oil pan. Alright, so now with the slack in the chain taken up by the engine hoist, what I need to do now is just undo some of these bolts on this engine mounting bracket. So there's 2 on each side, and then there are 3 at the top here. Alright, so if you're using an engine crane, just get the tension right, because I had to lift it up slightly because it is moving. So undo these top ones first before you do the 2 main bolts. So now these are all like loose, hand tightened. The engine's just sitting where it needs to. Alright, so I've just refitted that bracket again because I've realised in order to get the plastic cover that's off this section here, you need to get to the couple of bolts from underneath. So I've put the bracket back on, bolted that on. I just need to remove the wheel. It just gives me a bit more room to sort of get underneath. Alright, so with the wheel removed, we're going to take off this cover piece. There's a few clips that hold that on. It's the one piece all the way along, and a few more clips on this side. That'll just give us a bit more room to get to the bolts behind this plastic cover. Okay, so with that cover piece removed, you sort of have a bit more access here, and you can see this plastic panel that needs to come off. So that's just a 10mm bolt. There's a couple of bolts at the bottom and a couple at the top. So now I've just removed that engine mounting bracket again, and you can see a bolt just here. That is the bolt, 10mm bolt for the plastic cover, so we'll just need to take that one out. It's interesting with this cover that the holes in it are not the same as the bolt, they're much larger. So it's like that bolt's got a 10mm head, and then there's a washer, obviously, that goes there. Okay, so now to release the belt, we need to move the tensioner, release the tension, so then we can get the belts off. So you'll notice on the tensioner there's this little pin that sticks out. What you need to do is fit a 17mm socket on there. So the pin is just there. 17mm socket goes on it, and then I've got a long bar on here. So then with that in place, it gives you enough movement to stretch that to get the belt off, release some of that tension. So I'll give that a go. So at this stage now we can just slide the entire belt out of there now. Okay, so next we need to just undo the bolt on the tensioner itself. That's a 15mm. Alright, so now that the tension is off now, I just need to loosen the 2 bolts on the pulleys. Once you break them loose, they're pretty easy just to undo by hand. Don't get them mixed up because these two pulleys are different sizes. So the one on the left, which is technically the upper pulley, in the parts they refer to it as the upper pulley, that one is smaller. The lower one, which is to the right, is slightly larger. Okay, so let's just examine some of these parts. So the actual tensioner itself, I'm guessing what the issue is the actual spring inside. It's just lost tension, that's why it does that clicking noise. And you notice this pulley here, it's slightly loose. It doesn't sort of fit on there, sit there nice and tight. There is a bit of movement in it. So whether or not that's the actual cause of the issue, I don't know. And then these other two pulleys, I'm guessing there's not anything wrong with them. It's just a bit difficult to there's a bit of movement in it, but I'll compare it to the new ones in a second. That one feels a lot better than this one here. That's the upper one. Alright, let's take a look at the new parts. Alright, we'll start off with the tensioner. So the brand of these parts are Dayco. And you'll notice on this tensioner, there's a little pin that stays in place until you install it, and then when it's tensioned, you just remove that pin. To get it off, you might actually have to stick something in there. I use just a bit of an Allen key in there, so you pull down on that part there to get the tension, and then just shove that in, just because it helps it come out. So that's the brand new one. There's a little bit of movement in there, but the spring is the main issue. Okay, and then the actual pulleys themselves. Start off with the upper one, the smaller one. So it looks like we need to reuse a few pieces from the old one. I noticed I opened up this earlier. I noticed this one does come with some stuff. So this is the larger pulley, the lower one. It's got a couple of washers to go each side. Alright, let's start getting these fitted. Alright, so I'll start off with the smaller pulley first. So this is the upper pulley. Just need to unscrew that to release these two plates that are each side of that. And then we just need to work out. It goes on the engine that way, I would assume. Doesn't seem that worn at all. Alright, so that plate will go here. Let me just see if that one... That sort of sits right on there. So it may not actually benefit, because that needs to fit flat against it. So that, we may not be able to do that. We just put it on like that, I guess. And then the other side has that on there. Alright, so I've looked at a few different options of trying maybe using a washer, because that can't go on there because it's not going to sit in the correct spot. So I might just forego putting that in and just not put it. just put the bolt straight on there. And then of course we'll still put this one on the back. Okay, so for the lower pulley, which is the larger one, again it's got a similar thing. I'll just unscrew that washer on the back. And then take out the bolt. So this one's got that piece. Alright, let's have a look what came in that packet. Alright, so the new lower pulley, or the larger one, comes with these spaces. So you're meant to fit them each side of it. And then the original piece, then that can go on. So this one, it fits okay. And then we'll screw that on the back. Alright, I just wanted to show you, before I fit the tensioner, just how to remove the alternator. So the alternator is just up here. And there is a bolt here. So there's two bolts that hold the alternator in. You've got one bolt here, and then another one at the top, which you'll be able to see from the top of the car. So, and then obviously there's some connecting wires as well. So the upper bolt for the alternator is right there, sort of where my finger is pointing. There's plenty of room there. You can get to it with a socket. And then of course you have to disconnect the battery. So if you are going to remove the alternator, in order to get this bottom bolt out, because you'll notice that the side of the engine bay is right here, you will need to lower down the engine so that bolt can sort of clear this spot right here. Otherwise you won't be able to get that bolt out. Okay, so next we need to get the tensioner installed now. You notice that there's a pin on the back of it. That pin just there, the little pin next to the bolt. There is a corresponding hole on the engine block where it needs to slide into. Alright, so tensioner's torqued up, so are the two pulleys. The next thing to tackle now is trying to get the actual belt on. So I'll follow this diagram and then to see how I go. Once the belt's on, I can tension the tensioner and remove that pin. Alright, so the new belt is fitted into position. It's very easy to get on. The tip is do it so one of the flat pulleys is where it hooks onto last. The rigid ones, just try and make sure they're all sitting in there correctly. So the next job now is to release the tension out of the tensioner. So you can see that there is a pin still in that tensioner. Once that comes out, it'll sit in its normal position. You need to just put I think it's a 17mm socket on there, pull it down, remove the pin, then let it tension itself. That belt is sitting where it should be now. It's all nice and tensioned. Next thing to do now is just reinstall the engine mounting bracket. When you're installing it, if you've got that cable there, just be careful that it's in the right spot. When you're doing this up, just get all the bolts done by hand first, just so you can make sure the motor is in the right spot, because that is still tensioned and it's not actually touching the blocks of wood underneath. Alright, so it's running and sounds pretty good. No abnormal noises. Alright, so I'm just about done. Just need to clip this cover piece back into its spot and put the engine cover back on. So I'll just do those while I'll start cleaning up all the tools. Alright, so I'll leave it there. Hopefully you find this video of some use. I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching my videos.